Right, so I want to talk a little bit about the whole should kids go back to school and all that crap that's going on right now. I mean, Alberta just came out with their plan. The states are, it's a hot topic there. It's a hot topic everywhere, so I wanted to talk a little bit about it. But first, as far as the numbers go, I mean, again, they're up by a pretty good amount yesterday. 141 new cases. But again, the vast majority is in Calgary and the area. The active cases in Edmonton went up by like 10, so that's not a really a significant amount. And like I say, a lot of this is the testing. There's a ton of tests being done, and number two, there's probably some shenanigans going on. In that we know there's shenanigans going on, in that if someone dies with the virus, but clearly not from the virus, they're marked. We have tons of cases I've seen now of people that have went and booked a test and didn't show up, and turns out they're testing positive. We also know that the testing is a lot more unreliable than people think. I've heard numbers upwards of 50%. I don't know what the exact case total is, but I've heard several doctors say that they've had a lot of struggles with um, false positives. So that's one of the many problems of this. So again, the numbers they're bad, but they're not that bad. Again, we still have less than 100 people in the hospital. We still have 16 in the ICU. We're nowhere near overwhelmed at this point, and it's largely an afterthought, and not because the crazy pro lockdown people everyone's ignoring it. It's largely an afterthought because for most people we've been lied to this whole time. Like we've been lied to this whole time, and I seen a tweet the other day. It was from Rachel Notley. For anyone who doesn't know who that is, she was the former premier of Alberta. Leader of the far left NDP party. So she tweeted out, and I'm 95% sure she deleted the tweet because it didn't go the way she wanted it to go. Um, and it was should people be, I don't know, it was either should people wear masks, or should we have a law requiring people to wear masks. I don't remember exactly what it was titled, because I do have a screenshot of it, but I don't want to go through my phone right now. But again, I think about 72% of people disagreed. And again, this isn't like Jason Kenney tweeting it out. This is literally from the group of people that would be more likely to support the whole mandatory mask garbage in the first place. So it is very very encouraging for me to see that the clear majority of the public is aware that it's largely a scam, that it's largely a non-issue. So again, that's something that's very encouraging. Again, the numbers out of the states they're pretty steady, but the death numbers were up yesterday. They're up around 1,100, which again is higher than the last month or so, but it's still nowhere near as high as what it was in April and May. I mean, in April they had several days above 2,000. Looks like about 10 to 12, and then most, actually every day was over 1,000 in April. Yes, it looks like every day is over 1,000, and most days especially early to mid May. So again, they're still nowhere near where they need to be worried. And again, we know that there's a lot of false positives. We know that there's a lot of false deaths. So I would just venture to guess that probably 10 to 20% of these numbers are just flat out not even a case. So these numbers are inflated to some degree. And again, we know that that's the case. There's plenty of examples of that, and I've yet to hear of an example of somewhere that has underreported the case totals or underreported the deaths. I've heard of no cases of that, but yet I can rattle off five or six places just off the top of my head that we know have overreported the case totals and or the death numbers. So um, you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt to a degree. So as far as the whole schools thing, this is from Tim Young. He says teachers have no problems leaving their homes to shop, go to restaurants, bars, and protests. It seems the real issue for them is actually having to work. And again, that's clearly the issue, because you have these teachers that are making the equivalent to six-figure salaries. A lot of the teachers are making six-figure salaries. I think the average one's around 80,000, and again, they have 3 months off, throughout the year. Um, so the idea that the job is like that. There's a lot of teachers, oh, we're going to threaten to go on strike if you make it. No, the reality is, again, the science is abundantly clear too, and this is just more example that these people don't care about science or reason or evidence, because the science is incredibly clear. There's literally only one person under the age of 20 that's died in Canada from the virus, and they had pre-existing conditions. And we know, even the WHO has admitted, that asymptomatic spread is incredibly rare, especially for young people, like really young people, like school age kids. I mean, there's been other countries that have sent their kids back to school, and they literally have next to no cases from kids spreading it to teachers or people that work at the school. So there's clearly no risk whatsoever for kids, and the risk for teachers is literally next to nothing. And the only argument that, because when you completely debunk and destroy their argument for not going back, and personally, I don't think everyone should go back. I mean, if you have pre-existing conditions, there's probably going to have to be something set up. And the other thing too is that public schools are largely just a brainwashing camp. So if you can homeschool your kids, absolutely homeschool your kids. Like absolutely. The problem is that's not an option for everyone. And the other problem too is that even though public schools are brainwashing camps, it's not to say you can't give your kids a healthy dose of reality when they're at home, right? Because if you really know what you're talking about, you know exactly what the public schools are going to try and teach your kids. So it's not that hard to counteract it. The problem too is if all their friends and stuff go along with it and they have the whole rebellious stuff going on. But again, that's another issue in and of itself. But the main point being is that regardless of whether or not you want to argue the whole brainwashing thing, because I'm fully on board that, but the reality is that the science clearly um, shows that there's no risk whatsoever to reopening schools. The reality is that public school teachers don't want to work, and they've been told, and they've told the lie so many times, that they're so valuable to society. And it's not that they're not valuable at all, they're just not as valuable as they think they are. They've told and believe that they've told that lie so many times that they actually believe it. They think, yeah, we're making $100,000 a year salaries having to work, getting 25-30% of the year off. Like I say, it's gotten to their head that they think they're actually worth that much when in reality they're not. That they say, okay, well, if we're worth this much, well, then let's push for more. So that's going to be what's going to happen here. And here's the thing when it comes to public schools. Now, again, um, I'm not sure which numbers this guy are citing, but I did check the numbers before the video, so no one can argue. Alberta spends about $13,000 a year per kid. So these numbers are a little bit more for wherever this guy's from, but he says we spend $15,424 per child per year in public schools. Imagine if that money went directly to the families. A teacher could set up a micro school with just 10 students and pull in $154,000 a year. And again, this is the thing too, that when you hear these people, the more the leftist, the crowd, the schools are too big and there's too many kids in the class and we don't have enough money. Well, the reality is that, and seeing these numbers just completely vindicated me on this belief, and that um, the left, whenever they talk about the whole schools thing, the reality is that they want more power in their hands, right? Like they pretend like they care about the kids. They don't care about the kids. The reality is that they want more power in their hands. Like I say, a classroom of 25 kids in Alberta is going to be getting about $300,000 a year in funding. You are beyond insane if you think that that is not enough. You are beyond insane. The reality is that a lot of that money gets tied up in the whole bureaucratic process, which ends up in the hands of the unions and all these bureaucrats running the public schools. And who runs the unions and who works for the unions and who works for the bureaucracies that run the public schools? Oh, what would you know? It's like 90% NDP and Liberal supporters. So that's why they want um, more funding and more bureaucracy because it's more money for them. So don't fall for this stupid garbage. We care about the kids. No, you don't care about the kids. If you cared about the kids, you wouldn't think that $300,000 isn't enough to run a classroom. Like, are you serious? That's enough to pay two people $100,000 and still have 100,000 left over. Like, come on. Like, you have to be so insane. It's not even funny to think that that's not enough. Again, the reality is that number one, I mean, a lot of these people aren't even aware of these numbers. And number two, again, the goal is that they want more money for them. Again, they rail all the time about Jason Kenney. He's just giving money to his corporate buddies. Well, you're doing the same thing, NDP. You're doing the exact same thing, the exact same thing. And the difference too is, and the reason why I don't criticize Kenney, I mean, number one, I mean, I do criticize him to a degree, but number one, the mainstream media does plenty of that. If you want to go watch Kenney bashing or Ford bashing or Andrew Scheer bashing, you can watch CBC. They do it all day. And number two, um, most people, even people in the middle, like to pretend that it's only the right that does this kind of stuff. When in reality, it's not true. Look at Justin Trudeau with SNC and with We and with all these uh, scandals. I mean, he's on his third ethics violation already. Like, come on. I mean, it's the same thing with the NDP too. They hired like over 10,000 public sector employees. Like 80 to 90% of those people are people who vote for them. Those salaries are well above the median salary. Like, come on, people. It's so insane. It's not even funny. Like, and here's the thing, too. People will make the argument, like, just imagine if Kenney, just created 10,000 private sector jobs, that paid $100,000 a year. Of course, the left will be up in arms about that, and I mean 10,000 ones that are largely unneeded. Like those jobs were largely unneeded. Is it a job? Yeah, but are they needed? No. So again, I just wanted to point that out because most people don't know this kind of stuff. Like most people just have no idea about this kind of stuff, and you really should. So anyway, this is from Pierre Poilievre, and he says, so it gets worse. The We stood to gain 43 million rather than the 19 million previously admitted. Finance Committee. Now again, I mean this whole We thing just absolutely reeks, and I really don't know what the Liberals were thinking. Like, how in the world did they think they were going to pass this one by? Like, I really don't know. I'm guessing is that they were just that confident in themselves. Like they were just that confident that the media would cover for them, which they have done largely. I mean, they're more worried about Andrew Scheer not wearing a mask in an airport with one person within 10 feet of him than tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money being stolen for no good, or I mean hundreds of millions being taken for no good reason. Like, again, it just goes to show where the biases are at. But yeah, that's pretty much where we're at nowadays. That stuff like this can go on and literally nobody cares. Well, at least nobody cares who voted for Justin Trudeau, at least. And the last thing I wanted to bring up here is from Major Patriot on Twitter. And he says, you're living through the largest coordinated media disinformation campaign ever to be foisted on the viewing public. And again, I believe I mean, it may be a little bit hyperbolic, but I don't think that that's too far out of the question. I mean, you look at just how easy it is to fool the general public. Like the one big takeaway from this whole virus situation, at least in a nutshell, is it shows just how easy the public in general can be fooled into believing whatever the government tells them. The government can literally tell them one thing and 3 months later tell them the exact opposite, and people will go along with it no problem. The government can literally tell them something and them literally not even follow it themselves. I mean, you have Trudeau, Haydu, all these politicians. I mean, not only that, look at all these like mayors and stuff too that are big on whole mandatory masks, but yet they don't wear them. I mean, you got De Blasio in New York, you got Tory in Toronto, you got all these idiots, um, and yet people still go along with it. Like that's probably the most fascinating thing in going on nowadays is what causes people to go along with stuff that clearly is not in their best interest, but the politicians try and convince them is in their best interest, but the politicians don't even believe it. Like I don't know what exactly I mean, I can make guesses, but what exactly is the psychology behind that? Like, what is the psychology behind the government telling people masks don't work, borders don't work, to 3 months later having like wanting closed borders and mandatory masks, like, and not only that, the people supporting them fully the entire time, at least most people, like, what is, I'd like to know what exactly is it behind that. I mean, I think it's largely just groupthink and the argument from authority, or what exactly that's, that the whole Milgram study, the whole, the, people blindly believe people that are in, even if they're not actually in, as long as they appear to be in positions of authority, people will believe them. I think that's kind of what's going on, but I don't know exactly what it is. But that's kind of the scariest stuff going on nowadays too, and you have the mainstream media who's largely ignoring it. I mean, it's the same stuff with the whole mask garbage that I've been talking about now, is that um, there's been places in Quebec and Ontario that have had the whole mandatory mask BS going on for over 2 weeks now. And where's the drop in cases? I mean, Ontario and Quebec both had, very high case totals 2 days ago. Like, where is the drop in cases? Like, I'd really like to see it. So, that's the problem too, is that no matter how much evidence piles up, people still just double down, and I guess triple down and quadruple down. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on today, and it's terrible. It's terrible. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, check out my PayPal and email. I got linked in the description. Again, appreciate any donations, but at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe. That's all I really want. And the other thing that I would really want is follow me on those other platforms that I got in the description. So make sure you check those out too.